Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. Happy Tweetchat Wednesday, first week of the new year. How are you doing? You know, if you're joining us on a replay, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. And make sure to include the comment replay so I know that I can catch your view, because I definitely don't want to miss you. You know, today was kind of a crazy day, and if actually you've been and you might actually be watching the news as we're going live, but you know, if you're watching us live here, hello and welcome to the show. Let's start with the markets. Why don't we do that, right? The week is a pivotal one. We've got elections, we got certifications, we got all sorts of things going on. Now we got protests going on too. The Dow is up 437 points. The NASDAQ closed down 78 points. The S&P was up 21 points. So it actually was up quite a bit. We weren't sure if the market was going to close in positive territory, because as you saw, protesters supporting President Donald Trump have stormed the U.S. Capitol today. Really crazy. I mean, we started with the great day on the tweet chat, and then it got really hairy, causing Congress to suspend proceedings to confirm the election of Joe Biden as president. So they just couldn't do it. Unfortunately, it is what it is. In fact, we see people standing up in the Senate chamber. In fact, one man stood up on the president of the Senate chair and shouted that President Trump had won the election. Vice President Mike Pence, who had been presiding over the count, as you know, of the Electoral College votes, it was sort of the ceremonial activity today, was ushered out of the U.S. Capitol complex, as well as other officials, for safety purposes. So it's really kind of crazy. But let's talk about something that we can definitely celebrate. And that is that it's a new year, and it also means it was the first tweet chat of the year. And today's tweet chat was very special. This is one of my most favorite types of tweet chat episodes, if you will. And that is, today was a Tweet Chat Tribes Happy New Year throwdown, featuring our amazing community member leaders, Alyssa Carpenter. We've got Dr. I who's here. Jim is here as well. And they joined us today to discuss many of their questions that they shared and responses that were received. So during this live stream, if you don't mind, I'd like to invite you to jump into the discussion, as we'll be actively monitoring your comments throughout the show. So thank you so much for joining us. What a chat, what a discussion. Let's get started. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend? It's great to have you, as always.
Well, it's great to be here, and thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you and my good friend Dr. I. We got to meet in person. It seems like forever ago. When we met at Social Media Marketing World, and you had just I think you'd been about a year or so into your live stream journey, and I had just started with Tim, and or actually I had not started with Tim yet. That was before Tim and I started our show. So that's how long ago it goes back. So I'm trying to follow in your footsteps, but it's not easy to do. You're an amazing person, and I'm just, thrilled and honored to be here with you guys today.
Yes, let's say a quick hello to Dr. I. Dr. I, it's amazing having you here. And I want to say you both are amazing, and you have both incredible shows. Dr. I, I actually met Dr. I also at Social Media World, but on her first year that she was there, I remember this positive energy. She's like walking, talking sunshine, such positive, great human. And she was just starting. But now look at her. First of all, Doctor, I want to say a moment. Congratulations first on what's most important is reaching your second trimester, baby number 3, right?
Yeah, exactly. Another boy.
Woo-hoo.
Right.
And also, let's also celebrate, because this is a big deal, crossing over the 6-figure line, my friend. Very, very proud of you. Exceptional. I'm sure Jim knows this. Neither of us was actually very surprised to hear this news. Anyone who knows you knows that this was, obviously your calling. But so proud of you both. And let's start off the year, because many of you who have been part of our tweet chat, or maybe you haven't been part of tweet chat, you might not know what this is, but this is actually a global discussion where people from all walks of life across the globe join us as we throw out questions during this half-hour session. Actually, it's 1-hour session. Questions come out, and then you get to answer those questions, and you'll see we average about 150 million impressions per week. In fact, we are the largest business, entrepreneur, financial Tweetchat on all social media today. And you're getting invited to join in on this conversation today because two of our leaders are here and these are some of the questions that they shared. But so let's do this. I love to start with question number 3, if we don't mind, because this was a great one. 2020 was full of learning experiences. What is one thing that you learned about yourself in 2020 and how do you use that lesson going forward? So those of you who are watching, do know we are monitoring comments live right now. Wherever you are joining us from, feel free to enter to answer this question. And so I would actually love to start with you, Dr. I. Let's talk about that. 2020, what have you learned? What are some lessons that you're looking to learn going forward?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, thank you for the kind words about me and my business. Much appreciated. So for me, I really officially started kind of building my school last year, officially resigned from my position last year in summer. And so this year, to my great surprise, the global pandemic actually really helped my business a lot. And I think probably because I'm in this education space, trying to disrupt the old education model, and the global pandemic really exposes quite a few deep issues in our education model. So all of a sudden, people don't know what to do, and they start to look for alternative methods. I think that is a big reason that my business was growing so much last year. So what I learned from that is really having the right mindset. Like oftentimes we see problems and we become so obsessed with the problems that we're dealing with right now that we forget the other side of the problem is actually a huge opportunity. So that is a huge lesson for me, having always stay prepared and also have the right mindset to see not only the problem, but also to see as a result of this problem, what are the opportunities that I can leverage and I can take advantage of. So that is really my biggest lesson.
I love that. Thank you, Dr. I. Jim, right before we were going live today, we were having this conversation of, do we go live and should we do this, right? Because the world doesn't sort of reflect exactly the excitement that we have on our show today. Talk about a little bit about how that's impacting you. Like, are you feeling like some of the noise that's going on? We're seeing this in the news. How's that impacting what you do on a day-to-day?
Well, yeah, like what's going on today, as a retired Marine, lieutenant colonel, I mean, to be very blunt, I'm disgusted by the behavior. That's not what our country is about, and so I hope we get this, straightened out quickly. I think, the problem that we have is we just all need to come together and work to support each other like we do in this community. I think that we have to be always cognizant of what we're saying on social media, on live streams, because those are the sort of things that have a long-term impact on you as a business person or as an individual. And so what we've gone through over these last 9 months, kind of to I's point earlier, you've really had to think about what is your strategy, what is your plan. Things are not always going to come back as quickly as you would like to, and so I think that for me, it was just really focusing on, how can I embrace the technology and the live streaming to help not only myself, but the people that want to do business with me to succeed. And so, so on a day like today, you just have to okay, we got to listen to this, but we can't let it consume us, I think.
I love that. So we have to listen to this. We can't let it consume us. And that is so true. I think that was one of the biggest challenges of 2020 for myself, certainly, and with my team, is that we're trying to do our thing. We're trying to thrive and survive and grow our businesses. And yet there's all this noise and all these things pulling at us, right? I think that was one of the big lessons that we want to hold dearly as we go now that we're in 2021 and beyond. We got to focus on thriving and figuring out what that means for each of us. And that I think was really important. And in fact, Justin, who was part of the chat today, he said that I learned that I just need to ask more. I had so many opportunities open up in 2020 because I asked. Lesson learned. Jim, this must resonate with you as well. Opportunities 2020, did you see many of them for yourself?
Yeah, in fact, I will tell you in some aspects, I was surprised, pleasantly surprised. I think, my co-host from the Tim and Jim show, Tim, and I both talked about how, and this may be something that you both as well have seen, by getting into live streaming a couple years ago, I was so much more prepared for this than I would have ever imagined. And then I had people coming to me saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a show. Can you help us?" And we were doing remote production. I became friends with a gentleman, Chris Stone, here in the Atlanta area. We started doing podcast, and we started doing Amazon Live, doing virtual events for organizations. And I would not have been prepared for that if I had not started this journey a couple years ago. So sometimes, we don't understand that the things that, those seeds that we're doing now are going to grow into big trees and solid structure later.
Absolutely. I think that's a great statement, because a lot of us went into 2020 not knowing whether or not we were prepared. And I think for most of us, I think it's fair to say that we were not prepared, because this was definitely not an experience any of us have ever experienced, right, in our lifetimes. But like some of the tools and skills and experiences that we had helped us pivot. And certainly, Jim, you talked about that too, like your podcast, your show, your live streaming, all of that sort of fell into place. Dr. I, do you feel like that was certainly an advantage, that you actually had that sort of experience before going into the pandemic?
Yes, definitely 100%. Like everything that Jim mentioned, I agree 100%. I started my very first live streaming show in 2017. At the time, I was still a traditional college professor. My goal was to be a better teacher, but I never ever thought that this little show, this little platform can just like really become the starting point of my entrepreneurial journey. And nowadays, I actually host 3 shows. And I have to say that almost like 2/3 of my clients actually come from my shows, especially two of my 3 shows actually focus on education. So almost all the clients and parents and sometimes children, they discover me through those shows. So I'm really thankful. And for the skills, as Jim mentioned, that I actually developed prior to always stay prepared, prior to the pandemic.
And Dr. I, you said, I remember reading this on a tweet chat, that most of your clients come to you from LinkedIn and Facebook. Was that right?
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely number one. And recently I started to have more people reach out to me through Facebook, but LinkedIn is always my number one. And I don't just use LinkedIn, I also use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So the last year I was really learning and practicing, made lots of mistakes, and I have become a lot more skilled at using LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So that has also helped me generate leads and to kind of maximize the value of my show in terms of financial ROI for myself. Yeah.
That's great. That's good news. I think a lot of people are interested in learning more about that. Jim, talk to me about your show. Where do you see the most traction for your programming, and has this turned into other business opportunities for you?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. I think it's been a combination of things. I think as Tim and I have gotten better, I guess you could say as co-host, it's led to us getting guests, amazing guests like today we had Ifat Cohen on. She's probably one of the top live streamers and just has done a lot of great things. And some of the people we've had this past year, the people we have scheduled. And it has led to people like knowing that when I say, oh, I can remote produce something for you, I've got that, that track record of seeing what we've put together. And so I think we get more traction. We're starting to get more traction on YouTube. That's really where I think as we've progressed, we're because we're more interviewing, business people and people that are going to help businesses. LinkedIn and YouTube is where we would like to be, but I think even more so with YouTube, because if people are searching for those solutions to their problems, oh, this show, they were talking about it. And it's not even always about me and Tim, but our guest, right? We really want our guest to be highlighted. And I know that's something, even learning from watching I do her shows, that's where she's, has always been so masterful. And she's had, some amazing guests on her show. And so just the fact that I got to be on her show before, I was like, it's such an honor to be there as well.
Dr. I has an awesome show. Both of you have great shows. Let's actually jump to the next question because I want to make sure that we let everybody participate as well. And that's on question 5 from today's tweet chat. And that was, what are your business goals for 2021? Now, if you're watching us live right now, jump in and tell us what are some of the business goals that you have or professional goals that you have, and maybe tag someone that you think could benefit you during this time, because you just don't know. Sometimes, like earlier, Joshua had said, or Justin, I should say, had said, you just have to ask. Well, sometimes you just have to tag too. How are you preparing for them? What are the best goal setting tips for tracking, achieving your goals? Let's start with you, Jim. Talk to us about sort of your goals for 2021. What are some ways that you're preparing for this?
Yeah, so I started an Amazon live show back at the end of July called Dealcasters Live. And so me and my co-host Chris Stone, we bought the domain name. We've started a YouTube channel to go along with it. We've started a Twitter account for it because we want to drive traffic to Amazon, to our show, because that's really how you monetize that. And we sat down, we actually sat down Monday. It's like, look, we now have it on our calendar every week. We're going to meet. We're going to have, written out goals and deadlines of things we want to do to move that show forward. Same thing with Tim, with the Tim and Jim show. We've now gone to where we're just going live. We created a Facebook page just for the Tim and Jim show because we were kind of splitting our audience where some would come watch on my business page, some would watch on his. And it's like we really, in a sense, have created a, if you want to call it an accidental brand. And so we want to make it more focused that way. And so that's why last year, we got more into YouTube. So it's continuing to get, more subscribers on YouTube, continuing to focus on building a community with the Tim and Jim show. So those are goals as far as the live streaming goes for this year.
I love that. Okay, Dr. I know you are definitely very good at planning and organization. So I'd love to hear sort of your formula for 2021.
Yeah, the word I had last year was to really grow, like grow the business, which I did. And this year moving forward is really to scale. And what I learned is that the more I grow and the more I can serve other people who can't really afford my program, I really want to start my own classroom without scholarship so that I can continue to support children who really need to upskill, but they just can't afford me financially. So like for me, I say that Jim mentioned the same thing in the Twitter chat, started to create like processes, systems, like automation. And this is something that I'm still learning. I started using, like, I have so many tracking sheets and like how many calls I did, or lead generation, like closed calls, not closed, and like testing my messages. And I just become a lot more, I guess, strategic. Whereas last year was more kind of try, the spaghetti approach, spray, like spray it to the wall to see which one sticks. And now it's definitely a lot more strategic with like learning and working with coaches. And like more, even some of the tools, I share with you, Winnie, like a ClickFunnels has really helped me add a layer of automation, continue to grow my email list. And there are just a number of tools that I use. So I definitely want to continue to grow in this direction to scale more and delegate, delete, and eventually remove myself from the business, hopefully.
Yeah, that's sort of the dream, right, Jim? I think many of us can feel that way, that our income continues to come in as we reduce some of the hours that we put in. So, I mean, I feel like that's sort of a challenge that many entrepreneurs are going through. Do you feel like, given that more people are working from home during the pandemic, is this an advantage or disadvantage to your business, Jim?
I think for me, it's been an advantage, but then in some aspects, and I know we talked about this on the chat, I'm at a stage in life where my children are adult children. So it's not like I have to deal with, the day-to-day things, whether it's, homeschooling or, is it virtual school because the schools are, not letting people in person. And so if anything, because we have been at home more, right, it really made me focus on where I spend my time. Like before, I was going out to a lot of in-person networking events. And now I feel like I've made a lot of connections without having to go out in person. And so even once this is all, if we want to call it back to the way things are going to be, they're never going to go back to the way they were before. I'm going to be very much more focused on where I spend that, if you want to call it networking time. And I think, so really, I think the challenge is you have to come up with a system, and then, calendars are extremely important. I know, as an example, I'm right now in my studio. This is where I do my work. That's, my wife and my stepson know that if I'm down here, not to bug me because I'm doing stuff. But then it's like, if I go upstairs, that's kind of like, okay, now it's back to family time. So you need to separate that space and give yourself that, that space to be like, this is where I do my work. I'm in work mode. And then when I go, upstairs, okay, I can be more relaxed, and it's okay to be relaxed. And, and I've really doubled down on, I've worked out every day since the 1st of January. That's been one of my goals. It's like, I'm going to make myself do that because I felt myself getting a little lazy the last couple months of the year.
Well, I think many of us can relate to that, Jim. So good for you. I love that. I completely agree with this. I do think that there's been so many changes. Dr. I, you're going through so much. Your business is growing nonstop. You're juggling the kids at home too, and everything else, right? And your family is growing, which is another layer of beautifulness, but a lot of challenges to you too. So one thing I'd love to hear, and this is actually our next question too, is talking about social predictions. Dr. I, obviously, very much so where your ideal future client is. Do you have any predictions on where you think more growth will be in social media?
Yeah, definitely. I think we talked about this on the chat. Definitely in general, I think live streaming will continue to grow. And I also share this during our chat that, reflecting on my own social media journey, I have been in this space for a few years, starting in 2015. And I used to chase all the shiny objects, right? There's a Snapchat, there's like Meerkat, Blab, all those like fancy social media platforms. I was always one of the first few people to check it out. But, now I actually run a business. I started to become a lot more focused. And so recently, Clubhouse has become a lot more popular. I used it a few times. I don't know how much time I'm going to invest in it. So I'm more like a lot more chilled about all those social media platforms, not like always driven by FOMO, right? Oh my God, am I missing out on something? But actually continue to leverage the platforms that are already doing so well for me, but at the same time, keep an eye on the emerging ones. So for me, as I shared earlier, definitely LinkedIn, continue to prioritize it. And also now I'm also spending more time on Facebook, noticing that parents and people in general, because of this pandemic, are actually spending so much more time online. And so Facebook was something that I ignored before. I was like, no, I will never get clients from Facebook. But now I actually start to have people reach out to me. It's like, yeah, that's good. So I'm going to continue to spend 80% of my energy on the platforms that are already established and working for me. And then 20% of my energy on the emerging ones without driving myself crazy like I used to do. So that's kind of my strategy moving forward.
I love that. That's so helpful. Lena, see you. It's great to have you here with us. Get It Harris saying also, of course, some platforms go away and some emerge. So I agree with you. I think here's what I will say, and I'm going to definitely ask Jim for your opinion on this too, because for me, I think I think about like how much of my time does it take for whichever platform, right? So all of us are live streamers. One thing that I like to do is, I talk to my team about this all the time, is like, if I'm already going to spend the time to prepare for the show and go live, right? Why does it need to sit on just one platform if the same amount of work can get you multiple places? So, we basically started doing daily live streaming once we started working from home. So I think in 2020, I know we exceeded 200 some live streaming shows. And, it was sort of live streaming was the second chapter because, as you know, I had my official show, which still is on Amazon Fire, on Roku, and on NASDAQ. And then we went and did our live stream show as the live version of our official show. But I do think it comes down to how much of time investment and overall investment of your energy, but having it spread, if it's efficient, spread it everywhere, and then focus more energy on the areas that do drive business, I think is really, really smart. Jim, what's your approach on this?
Well, I think like where I'm on Clubhouse, I find it interesting because I do see some potential there, but it's just like everything else. All these platforms were on rented land. So how do you get these people, to your, spot, whether it's an email list or your website or whatever? So with Clubhouse, what I've seen, and I was joking about this, like I got sucked in one day where I was on for 6 straight hours. I was like, not letting that happen again. But where I've seen some success is where like someone will have a show, if you want to call it, or a room twice a week, and it's an hour, and that's all it is an hour, and they're very focused, and it's very topical. You could do closed rooms. So maybe as an example, Dr. I would have, but then right now it's only on iPhone, and that's something I have a little bit of issue with for really trying to use it for community building. Is you could have a private, club room where you're talking about your process and letting people basically come on stage and ask their questions. I think that can be very powerful because it really helps build that trust. You kind of hit on it a little bit as well, Winnie, in that Amazon, to me, is, I don't know if I'd call it a sleeping giant, but they're starting to do a lot of things that people, in a sense, it's under the radar. Okay. They're already the largest search engine when it comes to products. I don't know if people knew that or not. Bigger than Google. Your show is on Amazon Fire. I now have a show on Amazon Live. So it's like I'm already basically in the mall. We kind of joke that it's like I'm at Costco or something, and I'm the guy giving out the treats. Well, if you come and talk to me, basically Costco is giving me commission for anything you buy on your trip. And I think that's just like mind blowing, because it's like, oh, I don't have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of view time to monetize. I can monetize right away. So I think for some businesses or, Amazon sellers, oh, now I can get an influencer to talk about my product on this platform that people have an interest. And then they've got into the podcasting space as well with Amazon Music. Your podcast can be playing out there as well. So I think Amazon is definitely a platform for creators and businesses to pay attention to. I think Clubhouse is interesting, but I'm also curious to see what Twitter does with Spaces, with their recent purchase of, I think it's Breaker, because they basically bought the intellectual property, the people, and I think that's to help them do more with audio. So I think audio is going to be a big thing in the future, because I think sometimes we're not always camera ready. That's, I think, the nice thing about Clubhouse, right? You don't have to be camera ready to participate there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the only person that literally has to be camera ready 5 days a week. But and Get Hair and Lena are in Periscope and having a great conversation, and they're talking about the recent changes that are coming to Periscope that you already touched upon a little bit. Periscope, is going away, but it's going to become Twitter Live. I'm actually excited about this. I don't think this is going to be a negative. I think they knew what worked for them, but they're trying to take it to that next level. I'm thinking they're going to add more features. It's going to be more streamlined. I'm thinking it's actually going to be easier to use. And, all three of us are very active on Twitter, especially since our tweet chat's there too. But I'm going to agree with you, Jim. I'm actually, now that you've mentioned this, I'm actually going to spend more energy now, really doing a little bit more research on Amazon, because my show is on Amazon Fire, but I also have, I'm part of the Amazon influencer program, but to be honest with you, I really haven't done much with it. So I think this is really giving me motivation. Once again, adding to the list, right? Dr. I's laughing. To spend some energy on that. But I think sometimes when it comes to social media platforms, marketing efforts, because you don't have unlimited time or resources, it is smart to follow the money. Follow the money, see where the money is, where can these platforms reinvest to make their platforms better. LinkedIn is a great example, like Dr. I mentioned, owned by Microsoft, right? Plenty of money there, right? Amazon, again, like Jim mentioned, biggest consumer search engine, plenty of money there. I would definitely spend some energy there too, you know? And I think that, like, you know, obviously Facebook/Instagram, I think they got some kinks to work out, but overall still really strong platform, right? Clubhouse, who knows? But we remember, all three of us remember platforms such as Blab, Meerkat, Dr. I had mentioned, what it was even before Facebook, it was like MySpace, you know, you got to pay attention to, I think, where the revenue is, because if we all jump on, and we've all been on Clubhouse, we've actually been on Clubhouse together, really interesting platform. But I think, in my opinion, I sort of do miss seeing people. I do miss to be, right? I think if you could somehow merge what we're doing here, but what that it would, I don't know. It could be interesting. Maybe if Clubhouse gets bought out by one of the major players, that could be interesting too. But that's why we have these conversations, and that's why we have tweet chats too. So those of you who are following and watching us, I want to invite you to join on any Wednesday that's available to you. For those of you who are on the East Coast, like some of my friends here, you know, that'll be 2 p.m. Eastern. I know that's also coincides with one of Dr. I's shows. So thank you, Dr. I, for making the time. And then, or if you're on the West Coast, join at 11 a.m., you can join in your pajamas on Twitter, right? Hashtag Winnie Son. And, you know, we used to trend a lot. We're still really, the numbers are still huge. But the key thing is, you want to join in the conversation. We want to share your opinions. We want to hear from you, and to get to meet some of the nicest, brightest people on social media. I feel extremely blessed to have met Jim, and to call Jim one of my good friends here, especially on social. Dr. I is like a sister to me. These are some of the most dynamic human beings, and just entrepreneurs, and they're actually continuing to challenge us. Like, look how much I learned from the two of them today. I'm hoping you learn from them today as well, because really, whenever I do something like this, and I spend time with Jim and Dr. I, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just hang out with them every day, because literally we would talk about these things every day, right? And we would learn, like, what's working from you. Dr. I was so kind to train myself and my team for like half an hour on ClickFunnels not that long ago. Look at Jim, so generous on his what's working on Amazon. I imagine if we had a whole hour with Jim, imagine what he could teach us that he's learned from that platform that's still evolving. I mean, even though he's giving out his Costco samples, I mean, we love it, Jim. We'll take it all day long. But those of you who are watching, thank you so much. I know, I'm so glad that you came, because if you were just sitting on social media or reading the news, it could really get you down. In fact, today's one of those days where the news can get you down. You know, Jim is, like, as you can tell, a true class act, an American hero, in fact. And he was a little fired up. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to say a huge thank you to Jim. Thank you for everything that you've done for our country. We adore you. We appreciate you. And I think you said it best right in the beginning, which is, this is a time for us to come together. And the three of us are hopefully doing our little part about bringing more of us together. So join us again next Wednesday for our tweet chat, and definitely join us every day for our live streaming show. Thank you so much for tuning in and meeting Jim and meeting Dr. I, so that we can continue to have these real discussions and talk trending and real news that you can use. So do me a favor, since you're watching, send me some questions. Send me any business, financial, social media questions, and then we'll be answering them on the show this Friday. And if there are questions that I can't answer, they'll give you a chance to also bring in an expert and professional like Jim and Dr. I today that you'll see. So I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, supporting our show, and of course, sharing our show. Be well, and I can't wait to see you again. Let's bring Dr. I and Jim back up. Take care now.
Thank you.